Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Teaching English on Dروس Super Goal 4. On your behalf, we would like to welcome Mr. Salih Al-Ujan, the interpreter to the sign language. As always, we start our class by reviewing the objectives that we are planning to achieve by the end of the class, inshallah. By the end of the class, students will be able to identify the format of news articles and stories. Students will be able to scan news stories for important information. And by the end of the class, also, students will be able to identify the past and the past participle of 5 irregular verbs. Now we are still at Unit 7, as you know, and the title of this unit is Today's News. And in our class today, we're going to study the 8th section of this unit, which is reading. Before we start our main class, let's make a quick revision on the previous lesson. You remember in the previous lesson we studied conversation, and in this conversation we had a dialogue between a reporter and Robert, the one who was stuck in the elevator, and we learned how he was stuck there and how long he stayed there and how he managed to survive this incident. Okay, these are the 2 sections that we studied in the previous lesson, and also in the previous lesson we reviewed 5 irregular verbs. As you know, we studied the verb fall, and we told you that the past of fall is fell, the past participle is fallen. Feed, the past of feed is fed, and the past participle is fed, and you can read the examples on these 3 forms of this verb. Also the verb fight, the past of fight is fought, and the past participle is fought as well. Find, the past is found, and the past participle is found as well. Fly, the verb fly has the past form as flew, and the past participle is flown. Also in the previous lesson, in the conversation, we studied some idioms like this one. When Robert said, "I kept my cool," what did he mean by that? He meant that he didn't get stressed when he was kept in the elevator. Okay, also in the previous lessons, we studied the timeline of the 2 tenses in the past. We told you that we have past simple and past continuous or progressive. Sometimes we call it progressive. If we have 2 actions like these ones, the first one, the action here saying I was taking a shower, that was continuous in the past, and it was interrupted by another action, which is action number 2, the telephone rang. So we can see here in this these 2 examples, I was taking a shower. That is a thing that happened in the past, but it happened in the progressive form, which was continuous in the past. And the other action, the telephone rang, interrupted this continuous action, and it happened once, which is the telephone rang. Another example, if you look at Badriya here, Badriya was sleeping, which means that it is continuous in the past, and also we can say when Badriya was sleeping, the phone rang. Okay, when we ask about these 2 actions, we can say what was Badriya doing when the phone rang? We can answer like this: Badriya was sleeping when the phone rang. So here in this sentence we have 2 tenses. One is continuous and one is simple. Another example, if we ask about Ibrahim, we can say what was Ibrahim doing when his mother called him for dinner? He was doing something, and then while he was doing this thing, his mother called. We can say like this: Ibrahim was doing his homework when his mother called him for dinner. 2 actions. The first one is continuous. We can say Ibrahim was doing his homework. The other one is the simple present. We can say his mother called him for dinner. Our main class of today is on reading. As you can see here, today we are going to read a news article that is about a brave girl. Okay, her name is Marta. Before we start reading, let's make some brainstorming about this reading passage. Most newspaper articles and stories try to answer questions. Whenever you read stories in the news, okay, or somebody tells the story, there are some particular things that should be included in this article. The reader in this article wants to know who the person, the character of this news. Also, he wants or she wants to know what happened, and also wants to know where this thing happened, also wants to know when, the time of this thing, and the last thing, why it happened. So these are very important to include in the news. Okay, you have to consider them in the reading to find out about the reading, and also when it comes to you to write, you have to include the answers for these 5 WH questions. Okay, we have this girl. She is the hero of this news, and this is her brother, a child. Okay, we can answer the question here: how old is the little girl in the first picture? You can guess from the picture here how old this girl is. It is mentioned in the article that we are going to read in the next slides, and also the child. We want to learn or to know how old this child is. Okay, before we read, we have to also make a headline. What do you think the newspaper article is about? What is the headline of this article? Age means nothing. If you read this article, before you read the article, what is the meaning of the title here, or we call it the heading? Age means nothing. That means no limits for anything you can do with your age. You can do things that are older than your age. Okay, so that you have to think carefully and to behave well in certain situations. In our coming article, we will learn how this little girl was brave to defend her brother and to defend her father as well. Okay, the title again is Age Means Nothing. Okay, we can tell before we read the first paragraph of this article that there is a child, and here we have also Martha, the girl, and we want to know how old she is and what happened to her when she was in her father's car, and what happened also to the father when he wanted to defend his car and to defend his daughter and his son as well. These things we are going to find out when we read and listen to the first paragraph of this article or this news. Let's listen.
6-year-old Marta Garcia was sitting with her little 3-year-old brother in the back seat of the family car as her dad prepared to get in the car and take the wheel. Suddenly a stranger appeared and pushed Marta's father out of the way. He wanted to steal the car. The father fought back, but the thief overpowered him and got in the car.
Okay, so you can tell now about the introduction of this news or this article, that the thief was trying to steal the car, but unfortunately there were 2 children inside the car, Marta and her little brother. How old is Marta? Marta is 6 years old, and the child is 3 years old. Do you think that Marta can react to this action? Let's find out in the next slide. In the next slide, we will learn how the father reacted to the thief when he stole the car, and what happened to him, and what you can tell from the pictures about the whole story. Let's read and listen to the second paragraph of this story and find out about the reaction of the father.
Marta's father was holding onto the car door and screaming when the man started to drive down the road. He said later, "My children were in there. I wasn't going to let go." Finally, he lost his grip on the car and fell onto the road. The car disappeared, and the father sat crying on the side of the road.
Okay, so here we know what the problem is. The thief stole the car, took Marta and her little brother away, and the father was lying down on the street. So what do you think Marta will do to save herself and to save her brother? Let's find out in the next part of this story. Okay, this is Marta, and believe it or not, here Marta is trying to hit the thief with her fist, as you can see here, and she was trying to pull the hair of the thief as well, and she could manage also to save her child. How did she do that? Let's find out when we read the third paragraph.
But Marta wasn't going to let the thief get away with that. She started hitting the carjacker with her fists and pulling his hair. Finally, he got tired of it, stopped the car, and ordered the two children out. Marta took her brother from his car seat and helped him get out of the car.
Okay, so Marta succeeded to get rid of the car with her brother because she hit the carjacker, and also she pulled his hair, and the reaction of that, the thief stopped the car and let Marta and her brother go out. What happened next in the last paragraph? Now look at Marta and her brother. They're holding hands and they're going back to their father, who was very happy about the reaction of Marta. So Marta has no limits for her age, and she could manage to save herself and her little brother, and she was the hero of this story. Let's read the last two paragraphs about this story and find out what the police said about Marta.
Some minutes later, when Marta's father looked up, he couldn't believe his eyes. His two kids were coming toward him. Marta was holding her brother's hand. Marta said, "I wasn't scared. I wanted us to be safe. I was hitting the bad man. I just wanted Daddy." The local police officer said, "Marta is a brave little girl."
Okay, so now we can tell that really Marta was a brave little girl because she saved herself and her little brother. Okay, now let's complete these sentences about this story. Marta was sitting in the back seat. Now we're talking about two things happened in the past when we talk about the story. What happened while Marta was sitting at the back seat? We can tell a stranger or a car thief or a stranger pushed her father out of the way, got in the car and drove away. All these three actions happened while Marta was sitting in the back seat of the car. Another sentence here also, Marta's father fought with the thief, but what happened? The thief overpowered him and got in the car. That means he could defeat the father and get the car away from the father. Number 3, Marta hit the thief and pulled his hair until what happened next after she fight against the thief or the carjacker? He stopped the car and ordered the children out. What Marta wanted to have at the end. Marta's dad was sitting on the side of the road. What happened next? He saw his two children walking toward him. When he was sitting after he has been defeated or overpowered by the carjacker, he was sitting, and when Marta could manage to fight the carjacker and came back with her little brother, the father was happy to see the children walking toward him. In the discussion section here, do you think it is a good idea to try to stop a thief? Talk about it. You need to discuss this with your teacher and with your classmates about if you are exposed to like this situation. What is your reaction? What should you do if you are exposed to a similar situation like this? You have to be brave. You have to be to control yourself. You have to also keep cool, okay, and to behave wisely and to behave brave as well. So you can discuss that and find some ideas from your classmates, and the teacher will tell you more about the best reaction in these circumstances. Also, we'll go to the workbook, and we have an exercise there on page 118. We need to read another passage, and we need to answer questions, comprehension questions, to check our understanding about a moose. You can see the moose here. and we will learn what this moose did, and we will answer some questions after reading. So listen and read carefully and to be able to answer the following questions. Let's read and listen, please.
Some friends of mine live in Alaska. They told me this story. My friends were really surprised last Tuesday afternoon. They were playing football after school when a moose walked across the football field. They stopped and stared. They followed the moose. When the moose walked across the park, some adults and children were picking up litter. They too stopped and stared. They followed the moose. When the moose crossed the street, some children were sitting in a school bus. They got out and followed the moose. Then the moose walked in front of a police car. The police officer was talking on his phone when he saw the moose. Finally, the moose walked to the bakery. It stood there and was smelling the bread. Everyone thought the moose was hungry and wanted some food. The entire town stopped and was watching the moose. People asked, "What can we do to help the moose? We need to get it back to the forest." Someone had an idea. Soon after, the moose was walking out of town, following the bread truck.
Okay, so let's answer the questions about this reading. What were the writer's friends doing when they saw the moose? Okay, again, we're talking about events that happened in the past. Two kinds of actions. One is continuous and the other one is simple, like this one here. The writer's friend were playing football when they saw the moose. So they were playing football, which is continuous as we said, and during they were playing, they saw the moose. So here we have two actions. Number two, what were the people in the park doing when they saw the moose? Now we're talking about the other people in the park. We can tell that the people in the park were picking up litter when they saw the moose. Okay. Also number three, what were the children doing when they saw the moose? The children were sitting in a school bus when they saw the moose. Again, three actions and also three other actions. The other three is simple and the other one is are continuous. Number four, what was the police officer doing when he saw the moose? Again, the police officer was talking on the phone when he saw the moose. Okay, and the last one here, number five, what was the moose doing in front of the bakery? The moose was smelling the bread. The moose was smelling the bread when the moose was he was also in front of the bakery. Okay, we move to the last part of our class today, that is the irregular verb. You can find that on page 83. We're going to review 5 irregular verbs. We start with the first one here, get. What is the past of get? It's got, and the past participle is gotten. We read the example here about Robert. If you remember from the conversation, he gets stuck in the elevator. He gets stuck in the elevator. You can tell here that this sentence is in the present simple. We are using the verb get in the present. When we use it in the past, we just change the form of the verb to got. We can say here, he got stuck in the elevator. But when we talk about the action, regardless of the time, we use the present simple, as you can see here in the sentence. He has gotten stuck in the elevator. Here, we use he to refer to Robert. Number 17, the verb is give. The past is gave, and the past participle is given. Let's read the sentence. He gives his money to his family. We're talking about the father, and we use the verb give here in the present simple. And notice we use is here with the verb give because we use it in the present, and we are talking about the third person, the present simple. When we have he, she, or it, we have to add is to the verb in the present simple. So we can say here, he gives his money to his family, or we can say the father gives his money to the family. In the past, we just change the form of the verb into gave. So we say here, he gave his money to his family. Here we talk about an event that happened in the past. But when we use the verb given here, we use it in the present perfect. When we don't care about time, we care more about the action. So we can say here, he has given his money to his family. Okay. time is not important in this sentence. What is important is the action, the giving of money. So we say here he has given money to his family. And number 18 here, the verb go. If you use it in the present, you say go. If you use it in the past, what do you say? Very good, you say went. And if you use it in the past participle, we use it as gone. Let's read the 3 sentences here. He goes to Harvard University. Okay, that is a reading passage we are going to read in the next unit, which is about Bill Gates. We talk about him. He goes to university, to Harvard University. When we use it in the past, when we talk about Bill Gates in the past, we can say he went to Harvard University. If we talk about the action, regardless of the time, what do we say? We say he has gone to Harvard University. Verb number 19 here is hang. Okay, look at the children. They hang out to the mall. So when we talk about the past, we can say here hung. They hung out to the mall. Or we can say they hung also in the past participle. They hang out to the mall. That is a regular thing happens, or it happens regularly, as we said, and it is in the present simple. In the past, we use it also, but in the different form of the verb, we say they hung out to the mall. Time is important here. We talk about the past. But when we talk about the present perfect, we have to use the third form of the verb. We can say they have hung out to the mall. Again, we don't care about time. We care more about the action. And the last verb of today, we talk about the verb have. The past had and the past participle is had as well. How can we use it in 3 sentences? We can say, my uncle has an accident. We talk about present. If we talk about something in the past, we care about the time. In the past, we say, here, my uncle had an accident. Maybe yesterday, last week, last month, last year, and so on. Here, we specify the time, and so we use the verb had, the past form of the verb have or has. Okay, and the past participle, here we can use it with the present perfect. My uncle has had an accident. Here we talk about the action regardless of the time. My uncle has had an accident. And by this we come to the end of our class today. Thank you for watching and see you inshallah in our next episode. Goodbye.